Okay, so let's talk about the plot. And bearing in mind, this really does mess with the lore and the canon of Resident Evil of the series. So essentially, Mia is a character called Miranda, or Miranda is pretending to be Mia. She's a shapeshifter type bioweapon sort of woman, yeah, because now all the bioweapons in this series have to, be able to control things, other bioweapons, and be able to change in and out of their forms whenever they can and they want. So we don't get the old school cool factor of someone mutating into this horrible, disease-ridden freak and not being able to retain their brain function or their personality. They just mutate and that's it. No point of return, like Birkin or a tyrant or whatever, or a hunter being spliced with human DNA. They don't retain any of those human qualities and stuff like that. They're completely, vicious and monsterfied. So basically, Miranda is a shapeshifter. She can change into different characters. She can pitch her voice differently to sound like characters. So she infiltrates the Winters household, pretends to be Mia. They kidnap Mia, her and her freak, cult, whatever they are, group of lords. And they kidnap Mia and they experiment on her and keep her in Miranda's lab. Which is very much like the lab from Alien Covenant. It's modelled on David's lab from Alien Covenant. This borrows a lot from like Akira and Alien, Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Prometheus. Just loads of things. Resident Evil 4, vampire, werewolf films, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, you name it, it's got it all in there. They just pick things out of random, thin air and fucking roll with it. Call of Duty, like I said, the ending's definitely mirrored after the latest Call of Duty game, the remake of Modern Warfare. So basically, you know what happens. You know how everything plays out. You know the score. She gets shot by Chris Redfield because he's been hunting Miranda for like 3 years or something. He has removed himself from the BSAA. He splintered off from them. He now has a group of soldiers called the Wolfhound Pack. And no, none of them are characters returning from older games and older lore or canon. They're all new. And the Wolfhound Pack now operates outside of the BSAA's jurisdiction or something. But there's something funky with the BSAA, which we'll get onto later on. So they shoot Miranda. They then stupidly... One thing I will say about Chris is he's a bit of a dummy in this one. Like, if you didn't like him in 6, you're going to like him even less in this game, because all he does is shout at Ethan and just act extremely cryptic and act like Ethan's just getting in the way, and it becomes irritating. So he almost becomes as irritating as Wesker did from Resident Evil 5, but without the camp funniness that Wesker had in Resident Evil 5. He just becomes, I guess, as bland as Ethan as a character, or any of the characters in this game, other than Monroe, or Moreau, should I say. So, he shouts in Ethan's face, he kidnaps him and Rose. There's this whole intro section with a book, like Rose is reading a book to not Rose, Mia is reading Rose a book, this fairy tale. It's called The Book of Shadows. Capcom had a massive circle jerk over this thing. They were so impressed with making this thing that you have all these like making of videos at the end and stuff, and it's used during the credits, and this weird song plays, not as good as Aunt Rhody from 7. And it starts off like something out of Coraline, and you kind of get a gist because you've seen trailers and stuff, and you see what some of the monsters look like, that Miranda is Mia at this point, because she's talking in a creepy way, and the book mirrors what kind of happens in the game, and some of the enemies, the bosses, the lords that you fight are kind of revealed in this storybook, this fairy tale book. So it looks like something out of Coraline. Visually, that's what it reminded me of, like a Tim Burton-esque type of sort of animation. And then obviously cuts to the present day. She's finishing off the book. As Ethan, you take Rose up to bed, put her to sleep. Rose is super cute. I gotta be honest, like, super cute baby. And I like the dynamic of that family dynamic, how it plays with that family dynamic from 7. Yeah. So Ethan just wants to raise his daughter and live in peace with Mia, with Rose and Mia, and I like that. So the whole getting his daughter back and trying to get Mia back, later on is great. I think that's a really good pull for the story and the ending. You know, it ends the way it does. It does add that dramatic emotional weight to the ending. But unfortunately, the rest of the game doesn't. You know, it doesn't warrant that ending, if you know what I mean. It doesn't build it up to that point where you're really, really invested, unlike something like The Last of Us. You know, let's take that as an example. So, you put Rose to bed, go back downstairs, you have some wine, you're about to eat some food with Mia. She gets shot by Chris. They kidnap the baby, they knock Ethan out, being very cryptic, and they stick both of them in this van, in a government van, along with Mia's / Miranda's dead body. But she's a bioweapon, and a very powerful bioweapon at that, and they shove her dead body into the van with Rose and Ethan. Now, again, look how contrived this plot is. They just so happen to crash near where the village is. Now, this takes place in Romania. Romania is a big country, but they just happen to crash sort of like where Miranda's village is, her base of operations. And obviously she wakes up, she's been playing dead, she wakes up, kills the drivers, you know, the squad who's protecting Rose and Ethan. Because, plot twist, Chris isn't bad. Well, duh, fucking work that one out. And he doesn't turn into a werewolf, so like I said, they marketed this game, they marketed it in the wrong way. Like, 'cause, you know, I know what they were trying to do, I know what Capcom were trying to do, I could see it very clearly. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. They were like, they were like, yeah, let's dupe some people into buying this game. The trailers, once again, much like Metal Gear Phantom Pain or the new Mortal Kombat film, the trailers don't live up to the actual finished product. But anyway, so then Ethan gets out of the wreckage. There's a phone call. He goes to answer it, and the soldier says on the other line, "Who is this?" And he's like, "Where's my daughter and where's Chris?" Yeah, and the soldier says, "This is a secure line, secure connection. Get off of it." And he ends the call. And then so you move away from the wreckage of the van, which reminded me a little bit of RE0, you know, where the Bravo team find the van, the wrecked MP van, and the dead guards. So that was cool. You move closer to the village. Literally, you're just down the road from the village, literally. And so you move through the forest and through the village. We've seen it in trailers and stuff. And you happen across that villager who gives you your first handgun. He gets killed by the Lycans. Lycan bites off Ethan's fingers, and then from there you explore. You get to the bit in that house, Louisa's house, with the chick that they said you was gonna play as, or she was the female protagonist. I don't know what they did. This game seems like they had a lot cut out of it. I think they might have cut maybe those sections or that particular segment of the game, or they were just lying, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't just leaks. I'm pretty sure Capcom had actually said, yeah, you'll get to play as a new female protagonist, and it was supposed to be her. Well, it's not. She dies during that section, as you've seen, with the demo. So then you come out, you see Miranda first off, kill a villager like we seen in the demo, and then you basically make your way to Dimitrescu's castle. That's when you meet Heisenberg, and he levitates shit, traps you in this like coffin of metal, and then you wake up and they're all sort of hovering over you and saying, I want to kill him and I want to do this, and do you know what I mean, and all that stuff. It all plays out the same. He gets his arm chopped off by Dimitrescu at one point, which I thought was quite funny, and then puts it back on. He reattaches it as he does. And there's a reason behind that, and we'll get to that eventually. In the end, Dimitrescu chases you around. Her daughters try to chase you, try to kill you. You shoot out like windows, which shines light onto them. It weakens them, and that's how you kill the daughters. As far as I could tell, all the daughters look the same though. They all have like the same look and stuff, same character model. So maybe I was wrong in that. Maybe there's slight differences, but that's what it looked like. And so they chase you with Dimitrescu. At one point, or one of them chases you with Dimitrescu, and she comes at you like a tyrant with her big knife hands, big knife claws. And, you know, it's typical like new school Resident Evil stuff with Mr. X from Remake of 2 and 7 as well with the Bakers, you know, Jack Baker. So very similar stuff like that. And I've got to be honest, it's getting kind of boring now, like the whole Alien Isolation Outlast chase thing where you can't kill the enemy and stuff like that. It's getting a little bit boring. So you go, you basically read this note about the dagger. You see the daggers shown to you in the trailers. The dagger's not that special. It's just a poison dagger from what I read and what I could tell. This is only the first time I played this game, so you got to bear with me if I'm getting things wrong. The story's very convoluted and just all over the place. It's a mess, and some of the game is just uneven. So anyway, you read about this dagger, and eventually you find the dagger, and this is the point of no return where you can't go back to the castle. You end up getting grabbed by Dimitrescu after killing all of her daughters. You stab her in the side with the knife. It apparently weakens her because it's poisoned, and she turns into the big moulded dragon thing. Okay, so I thought the dragon would be like halfway towards the end of the game or something like that. No, it's within the first hour. You kill her ass, and then you move on. You know, she has this monologue, this very pretentious, over-the-top villain monologue. I can't die and all this stuff, and she dies. Yeah, you fall through the floor of a castle battlement where you face her, and she just dies from the fall, and obviously the amount of shots that she's taken from your guns. So then you move on to, I think it is Donna Buenavito's house, and like I elaborated to earlier, but I couldn't go too in depth with it. She controls like dolls. So the producer of this game, the director of this game, he has a fascination with creepy dolls. I don't find dolls creepy. They don't creep me out. I don't find them scary. Some people might do, I don't. With the mannequins from Seven and then the dolls in this one, he's got an obsession. So he gets his obsession out in this bit because it's just dolls and a puzzle with this mannequin that you have to solve in order to move, basically in order to get out of the house. And then this giant fetus thing that looks like it wouldn't be out of place in Silent Hill starts to chase you. And it's just very linear. The whole of this game, the way things play out, the amount of cutscenes that play, very, very linear. This is very linear. It's extremely scripted. You go through it. You avoid this thing like once. You hide under his bed and then you just make a run for it. And that's the end of it. And it's all supposed to be a hallucination because Donna Buenavito's power is she doesn't mutate. She looks human, but like Evelyn, she can make people hallucinate with the power of her mind, essentially, and she can control these dolls because she's put a little bit of her Kadu. Basically, I'm going to say it now. The Kadu is this parasite that they made from the mold and from the Megamycete, which the Megamycete will go into more in depth later. But basically, it's where the mold comes from. It's the heart of everything, of all the infection and the mold and all these creatures and bioweapons. So she puts bits of Kadu or her Kadu, the parasite in her, much like the Plagas, into the dolls and she can control them. It's as stupid as it sounds, and it's as stupid as it is, because this doll can fucking levitate and float everywhere. All these characters, all these enemies now can levitate and float everywhere, all these bosses and stuff, as far as I can tell, and fly and just morph into things, and it's ridiculous at this point. It's like the X-Men, basically. They've become the X-Men. So you basically have this really crappy scripted boss fight where you have to find the doll. He stabs her with a pair of scissors. Oh, I forgot to mention, while you're hallucinating, you lose all your weapons, and then at the end, you basically get all your weapons back. Did Ethan just hallucinate he had no guns? Or generally, did he lose his weapons and then get them back later on? I don't know, you just acquire them, you just have them. And so basically you're trying to find, the merchant says you've got to find pieces of your daughter. So what happens is, and this is like Akira, you find these flasks where bits of Rose have been kept in. That's very Akira. And they're sort of illuminated a lot like Akira and stuff like that. But what happened to Rose is, because people are going to say, what do you mean? Did they cut a baby into bits or something fucked up like that? No, Miranda turned her into crystal, like shards or something, turned into crystal, and then they smashed her and they put her into these flasks, these containers. And that is I think the official synopsis, because I thought at first they had cut a baby into bits and put them in a flask, and I went, even for Resident Evil, even for a horror game, that's too far, that's pretty dark, that's very, very dark. But they didn't do that. They basically, it's this really mystical fantasy type thing that happens to Rose, where she turns into crystal, they smash her into pieces, and you find bits of the crystal in these containers. So basically you get a container from each lord, the 4 lords, and there's one that comes up on a pedestal, as you're leaving Buenavito's house. Like I said, in order to kill Buenavito, all you do is a very scripted sequence. You find her doll, I forget what the doll's name is. It's really annoying. It's a very irritating character. Same as Heisenberg, same as Miranda. Moreau and Lady D were like the only cool villains in the whole game, and you don't even get to see much of them. I would have preferred that Lady D be the main antagonist, like I thought when I first watched the original trailers. I thought that Lady D would be the antagonist. So anyway, you stab the doll in the head once you find it with scissors. You do it 3 times. Kill Buenavito, she's dead. And then you move on. You go to Moreau's location, his area, the place he resides in and controls. It's a dam. And you essentially meet him, and he's a very weird character. The thing I like about him, like I said, he reminds me of Salazar. You feel sorry for him because he's pretty much like stupid, and he's like a hunchback. He's like the Hunchback of Notre Dame type of, Notre Dame type of character. And you feel really sorry for him because he's a bit thick and he looks gruesome. He's got boils and warts all over his skin, and he can't control his mutations. So he's one of the ones that can't really control his mutation, but he does go back and forth between mutating. And so you fight him as this giant fish/frog thing, okay? Now, if people have seen the boat section during the trailer, don't be too excited. It's not even up to the standard or classes of Resident Evil boat, like boss battle. You don't take him on the boat. it ferries you from one point to another, and I kid you not, you'll probably see it during these gameplay clips that I'm putting up. You hit a invisible wall at one point. It's literally an invisible wall, and I was like, wow, this is lazy game design. Literally, I don't remember hitting invisible walls in Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 2 Remake, but you do in this one. So the boat ferries you from one part to another, and he's sort of coming out of the water as this giant fish thing, and then you end up basically doing this puzzle with this windmill, which, while it looks cool, is just very long and just, it's not that great. And you avoid Moreau as he's taking away these platforms and stuff, and it's still very scripted as a moment. You restore power, go back to the switch, flip the switch, and it basically drains the water. So then Moreau's trying to find a water source because he's part of fish or whatever, part frog or whatever he is, and you then fight him sort of like around the shanty towns, because you're on top of the roofs at first when there's all water and stuff. It's a submerged town, and then you fight him around the shanty town when all the water's drained. And at one point he actually he creates acid rain, which I thought was quite clever, and so you have to hide under this corrugated roof. But he only does it like once. Other than that, I just killed his ass. And like I said previously, he comes out of the like Dimitrescu out of the actual like boss. It comes out of the body of it, and you shoot him. And a lot like Salazar and Dimitrescu, he's just very pale and and just attached to this thing, and you shoot him. So once you kill Moreau, you move on, and you move on to Heisenberg's factory. Now here's the point where I was like, this is such an uneven game. Like, even before that I was like this, but I felt like that. But this bit is, you essentially put all the, because you find one more of the flasks. I think it's either while you're searching the catacombs, and you go to the catacombs sort of area, or it's either before or after that, and you find this full flask, and you put it into this this plinth called the ceremony site, which acts as a mini hub world to get to the village and get to these other places like Moreau and Donna Buenavito and all that. So you basically go to ceremony site, and it has these 4 holes, and you put each canister in the holes with Rose's body and whatnot, the crystallized body. You put them in the holes, and then it unlocks something, and it gives you this this stone plinth type of thing. It's like a stone, just it's a stone plinth, and you take the stone plinth back to this area with all these 4 king statues, and you put the plinth on the umbrella sign, the insignia, and then this lift takes you down, and it's got this sort of like, the roof of it has the umbrella sign. So you're sort of thinking, was Umbrella here at this point? Were they involved before they did the experiments in the mansion and in Raccoon City? Could be, but you actually see this insignia on a wall when you meet the old woman. I've got to talk about the old woman. The old woman shows up around the place in the demo if you've played it, and also in the trailers, and in the game. And then she's in this sort of underground section. I think it's after you beat Dimitrescu and leave the castle. And there's this this huge umbrella type insignia with like the four lords, their insignias. And basically, it's basically it tries to insinuate that the logo, the umbrella logo, has been around for just centuries and generations, maybe even around the time of alchemy, and there might be something that predates even the lords in terms of that insignia. I think this is stupid, and it just leads to me scratching my head saying, why did you need to elaborate on Umbrella and the symbol of Umbrella and the fact that Spencer stole that symbol from the lords? And he stole the symbol from the lords and he created Umbrella. Essentially, that's what he did. And I think that was stupid. I do. I think, what's the point? Like, why try and ruin the story of Umbrella? Like, Umbrella has its own connections. The actual symbol has a connection to the company because an umbrella means to cover everything. Protect from rain. In that way. So it covers everything. That's why people call companies sometimes umbrella companies. That's what it means. It's an umbrella company. It covers everything. It's in control of everything. It protects them as well. And it looked cool on top of it. Red and white. Some great, sci-fi sort of pharmaceutical company design and colours, right? And I think this game almost insinuates, so I could be completely off and wrong about this, insinuates that there have been generations and generations of human beings becoming gods. So it ties back into Spencer saying, I wish to become a god, and then you find Miranda is close to becoming a god and all this stuff. So it goes into the realm of fantasy and leaves sci-fi way more than any other game in the series. This is more in the realm of fantasy and the fact that there were these humans that probably found the Megamycete. By the way, the Megamycete, essentially, it looks like a fetus, but it's glowing. It glows red, blood red. It looks like a fetus. It's massive, and that is it's essentially like the heart of all the mold, virus and the connection. And it acts like a hard drive. I kid you not. At one point, Miranda says it's like a hard drive. It stores everybody's data and stuff. So anybody that it infects, that hive mind type of thing that we saw in 7, it stores their data, their memories, and all this other stuff in the DNA. And so it's a very advanced organism. It's a very advanced organism, the Megamycete, and it acts almost like a queen bee, a queen ant, anything like that. And it has all its subordinates, and it can control them, and it's got this hive mind, and it stores all the DNA, all this stuff. So it's like a queen, whatever it is, but it needs a vessel. So Miranda is that vessel. She's the queen of the Megamycete, essentially. So she's in charge of it. And like I said previously, when you get to this area that I couldn't spoil earlier, it's like in this little cavern, this cavernous area, you can hear something expanding and growing. And when you read the notes on the laptop that's there from Chris's team, Wolfhound Squad, you actually find out that's where the Megamycete is. You can't really see it because it's pitch black, but you know that's what it is. So it's expanding and growing, and it's a living organism, but it needs a vessel like to speak through. And well, not because Miranda is her own thing, but that she's the queen of the Megamycete. Like, she's in charge of the Megamycete. It's like it's essentially like I don't want to say baby, but it's an organism that is powerful in some ways. But not really able to communicate or use a brain function the way that we would think. Like I said, it's a bit of a strange one. It's a strange thing, definitely, but it is powerful because it can just cough out the mold and infect things, and it's used like a hard drive. So in that way, yeah, it's powerful, but can't communicate, and I don't think it can really think for itself, as far as I could tell anyway. But the reason why I think that it's trying to insinuate that there was gods and these people treated like kings and all this, because there's the 4 statues of these godlike kings, and they mean something in the grander scheme of things. So yeah, it's like that is originally where Umbrella sort of came from, and Spencer stole it. And the only thing you get that ties to the older games and Spencer and Umbrella is this note with Spencer saying that he he was with Miranda when they were researchers, spent time in the village. He had to move on to continue his own research and pursue his own thing. He created Umbrella. He told her about that with a plant that he found in Africa, which is stated in the memo, the note. And you see a picture of him when he was, mountain climbing in the village, and he's dressed in sort of mountain gear and stuff like that, and he's younger. And then you see some photos of Miranda that, where she's in her researcher outfit and stuff like that. She's like a scientist. And her lab is pretty much stolen from Alien Covenant. It's David's lab, essentially. And that's where she keeps Mia as well. And I'm not being funny, but the game really jumps in pace. Like, towards the end, it really rushes to get itself done and finished, and over. Which is a massive shame. But then again, I was also like, I think I'm done at this point. Like, let's speed it up. So you going back to where you get that plinth and you put it on the umbrella sign, and that's the history behind the umbrella sign explained. You go down in this lift. It's got a huge umbrella style ceiling, and you make your way to Heisenberg's factory. Doesn't make any sense why a factory would be there in this lift if this lift was created like centuries and centuries ago. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the Lord created it. I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, you basically get to Heisenberg's factory from that, and the factory's good for the most part of it. It's just, it outstays its welcome. Like a lot of people have said, it does tend to get boring. Even at one point, Ethan says something along the lines of, Jesus, there's more of this. Like, even he's getting fed up. It makes me wonder if the actual developers and the director knew that would happen, and they just added that in there. I don't know, but it outstays its welcome for an extra 20 to 25 minutes, and then you end up facing off against Heisenberg, which I said previously. You kill him, and at one point he does say, because Chris blows up his metal army, that's what Heisenberg calls his army, my metal army. Actually, before that, there's a really contrived, stupid part in the story where Ethan sits down on a chair, or is pushed down by Heisenberg on a chair that's right next to an open grate with like a monster down below, and Heisenberg's so melodramatic as a character. Like I said, him, Miranda, and Buenavida are all very melodramatic, and he's picking up a knife and throwing it into all the lords that you've killed, and he's like, a tall vampire bitch, a freak and a cripple with Moreau, a stupid doll, and he's like, that's how he talks. He talks like this, and he goes, a stupid doll, and he throws the knife into there, and then he says, a freak of nature, an idiot, and throws it into that picture. It's like, Jesus, dude, man. Like, I can't stand his voice. I can't stand his voice, and I can't stand the theatrics of it all. I really couldn't. So, he's going to kick Ethan into the hole before he kicks Ethan into the hole. You know what's going to happen. Ethan still puts himself in that position like an idiot. And then when he grabs him, it's like Ethan doesn't really care at that point. He says, last chance, Ethan, because he wants to join with Ethan, actually, and he wants to rescue Rose with Ethan to, I guess, take on her power so he can kill Miranda. It's never really explained, or at least I didn't understand it when I was playing it. I understood it, but only the basis of it, that he wanted to gain Rose's power and then he could kill Miranda. And it's a very Wesker with Spencer type of deal, where Wesker wanted to break away from Spencer, because he felt controlled by him. Same thing with Heisenberg and Miranda. Are any of these villains returning villains from the series? No, they're all new, all brand new. And Heisenberg is essentially the new Wesker character, or the new Lucas character. So he grabs Ethan's arm and says, last chance to work with me. And Ethan says, I'll take my chances. And he boots him down to the hole. That kicks off you going through the whole factory, which has some great moments, like I said, some really cool moments. And actually, there's one really good bit where you nearly get sucked into a fan, this huge fan, and you shoot another orange glowing orb, and it stops the fan and drops Ethan. It's only like a 5-minute segment of the game, but I really liked it, and I liked the factor in this huge aqueduct and stuff. It was cool. Not aqueduct, air duct. So. Yeah, so you fight Heisenberg, and at one point, we've gone back to the boss battle. We've progressed and gone to the boss battle. At one point, his metal army factory blows up, and he says, "God damn that boulder punching asshole! Yeah, like so he references Chris punching boulders, and I was like, okay, but how the fuck would he know about that? How? Was it in the newspaper? Did he read about it? Who flipping knows? It's clear Capcom put it in to reference it to fans. You know, that's how deftly this game plays things. So you kill him. It's a very easy boss battle, very uninspired. You kill him, kill the giant transformer. And then Miranda shows up, and if you've read the leaks, you know about it, she rips Ethan's heart out of his chest. And you actually realise that she was the old woman, if you hadn't at that point, and Mia, and also the crows, because she shapeshifts into all of them. Tells him about a plot. The whole plot is basically Miranda's daughter, Ava, died of the Spanish flu. Miranda went into that cave that had the insignia with the four lords on it to die. And I think anyway, or it's the cave with the Megamycete where Chris has set up shop, and she got infected with the mold virus from the Megamycete, linked to the Megamycete, and it's all very Qyfod Roots type of stuff, you know, from Devil May Cry 5. That's what it reminds me of. I'm pretty sure they had someone that, you know, that wrote the story for DMC5 writing this, but where it works in DMC5, it doesn't work in a Resident Evil game. But anyway. So she got infected, and then she had the idea that if it can bring her back from the state of death and whatnot, then it can bring back her daughter, but she needed a vessel for her daughter. So in order to get a vessel for her daughter, she had to wait for the right time. When Rose was born through two infected humans, which is Ethan and Mia, she was the perfect vessel. How? Why? Who cares? Who gives a fuck? It just is. That's the way it is. So, you know, again, it's like, okay, so what if they'd never bumped uglies and created Rose? Then what? So the other lords were apparently test vessels for Rose, Ava, but they didn't work out, because you find, like, you know, notes and stuff or books going through who they are and their backstory and why they weren't perfect candidates and vessels. So that's her whole thing. So that's why she wanted Rose. And what she's going to do, and I kid you not, is she's basically going to go to the ceremony site, and she's going to use the mold, which can liquefy. It acts just like the black goo from Prometheus and Alien Covenant, where it can do anything. It can make someone into a superhuman, a god-like, you know, entity. It can basically, so essentially the canisters contain crystals of Rose. It reforms Rose. She's the only one that's able apparently to do that. It's ripped straight out of Prometheus, literally, where, you know how Shaw and not David, but how Shaw and the dude that Dushy's with, they bump uglies and they create the trilobite, and then that creates the deacon, and shit, I'm saying, like, or it impregnates one of the engineers with a embryo, and then it turns into the deacon. It all stems from that. But it's like, well, if they hadn't have bumped uglies at that point in time, then we would never have the trilobite, or we'd never have all this other stuff. And it works in the same way, where, you know, because Ethan and Mia had a kid, and that kid has, like, human DNA spliced with the mold DNA, and the mold originates from the Megamycete, and the Megamycete is just below the ceremony site kind of pillar where you put the canisters into. It all comes together in whatever wacky way that Capcom believe in their heads. I don't even think they know themselves, but it all culminates in being able to put Rose back together in crystal form and then recreate her as a baby. Now, originally I was like, okay, the baby looks just like she did in the beginning. She's not cocooned in like a mold cocoon or something like that, or something clever like that. She just appears in her baby clothes, you know, looking exactly the same, acting exactly the same as she did in the beginning of the game. So it literally just reforms her, and Miranda picks her out of this black goo, this liquefied mold, I'm guessing. So yeah, like, so before that happens, before you see that happening, you play as Chris Redfield. Now, Chris Redfield has what can I say about his character? I don't like his character in this. I don't think he's likable. I gravitate more towards Ethan as a character. I liked how they handled Ethan's character, although he is still bland in some ways. he doesn't, unfortunately, Ethan doesn't hit the same heights as previous Resident Evil protagonists, and I don't know, I can't put him in the same list as those protagonists. I just can't. But I think that they did way better and much better with his character than they did in the previous game. In 7, he's more likable. He's more of an action hero. He basically got basic training, you know, combat training and stuff from Chris Redfield and his team. Like I stated earlier, Chris Redfield's team is all new characters. They're not returning. There's no Leon Kennedy cameo or Carlos or Sheva or whatever. There's none. No Billy. So yeah, they're all new. They have names. I couldn't remember them. And the reason why is because Chris always gets a new team of soldiers and they're always forgettable. So anyway, Chris basically just shouts at Ethan, kicks his ass a few times, tells him he's getting in the way, even though obviously he's a father looking for his daughter. What would you expect him to do? And he just acts like a dick, essentially. And then at the end he goes, alright Ethan, I'll tell you what's going on, yeah? He's even saved on Ethan's phone as Alpha, because he's like the alpha of the pack. That's where you see the whole thing with the wolf and stuff like that on the front cover. Ooh, very clever. Great marketing there. Anyway, I mean, it's quite clever marketing, but it's basically, you know, misleading. But this should be expected. We should expect this from companies and video game companies and film companies at this point. Anyway, so he drops the whole situation, the story and everything, breaks it down for Ethan. It fades to black, so you don't actually get to hear this for yourself. Instead, when it cuts back, he actually, what does he do? He contradicts himself. In the same cutscene, he says, you know, I tried not to get civilians involved, yeah? And then after he's dropped, you know, he's broke down what's going on and who Miranda is and what's actually happening, he turns around to Ethan and says, when Ethan says, I'm going to kill the bitch, he goes, nice one, Ethan, go get Heisenberg. Yeah, so what was the whole, I don't want to get civilians involved? Even Amir aren't exactly civilians. Mia isn't a civilian. She was transporting bioweapons, and Ethan is part bioweapon along with Mia and his baby, so they're not exactly civilians at this point. So you go over to a laptop after he's disappeared, and you read what's gone on and read about the story, which was stupid. They might as well just had him break it down quickly, you know, and show you that part of the cutscene. So it actually says that the connections, they were trying to find a link to the connections. The only link they could find is that the connections approached Miranda. Miranda gave him a sample of the Cadu or the mold, and they were able to go and create Evelyn. Okay, but Evelyn wasn't a perfect vessel either. That's what Miranda says. Other than that, the sources and the links have dried up. The trail has dried up, and they can't find any involvement of the connections, you know, during this incident. That's essentially what it says, and Chris has been hunting this bitch for 3 years with his team. He blows up the Metal Army along with the factory, and then he fucks off to his SUV and sits in his SUV while Ethan dies. And this is not the Chris Redfield that I know, you know, that would go out of his way to protect his team, that, you know, would die for people. This isn't the same Chris Redfield. And his soldier buddy says, yeah, Ethan Winters is dead or whatever, and Chris is just like, when does it end? You know, he's doing that monologue he did in 5, where he's like, more and more I ask myself, is it still worth fighting? Same thing is like, when does it end sort of thing. He's, you know, and it's trying to get across that he's a more grizzled and just a jaded character, but he just seems like he went to his SUV, sat back and waited till Ethan died and went, okay, now we got to take it into our own hands and kill Miranda. So that leads to you having a massive firefight, just Call of Duty all over the place, firefight throughout the village, the destroyed village. The Megamycete, you know, shows itself. You get to see the Megamycete. You use this laser pointer to destroy it with like a laser or some sort of guided rocket missile, something like that. You fight off waves of, you'll see it in the gameplay, you fight off waves of Lycans. You meet this sub-boss Lycan, then a cutscene plays. He throws this like almost like mini tactical nuke onto the Megamycete. Once you see it, it's like I said, it's like this big glowing fetus looking thing. And Chris is gonna blow the place sky high. It will destroy the whole village. Like I said, like mini nuke, destroy everything around the village. You know, just in the village and and sort of surrounding the village, the forest and stuff. So it'll wipe out any of the infection or the infected. And so you stumble across Miranda's lab, and you find Mia locked away in a cage. She's been experimented on. Some melodrama plays out. Like I said, this game's very melodramatic. And Chris says, "I'll get your husband back. I'll get Rose back." Yeah. Oh no, he says Ethan's dead at that point because he thinks Ethan's dead at that point. But I'll get Rose back. So she's like, okay. So he tells her to get to the chopper. So she get to the chopper. So he tells her get to the helicopter. She gets to the chopper, and then Chris goes to kill Miranda. You wake up as Ethan. Ethan isn't dead, but he's in a hallucinogenic state. Evelyn appears, explains. The big plot twist is she explains that Ethan has been dead since the events of Resident Evil 7 when Jack punched him, knocked him out, and kicked him in his face. He actually killed him. There's massive plot holes there. You want to know why? In 7, they didn't think that maybe it would have led to the events in RE8. Maybe things would have been different, or Revelations 3 wouldn't have been repurposed as RE8, as Village. But originally, he just wakes up because he got knocked out. But in this game, they say that he died. Jack killed him. But the plot hole is, Ethan wasn't infected up until that point. Jack knocks him out. He gets infected when he's sitting at the dinner table with them and they feed him the infected meat. That's what it's supposed to be. And then he starts to, get infected and he's able to reattach limbs and all this other stuff. Quote me if I'm wrong. If you lot can break this down, comment section, that's what it's there for. Please, explain it to me. But as far as I can tell, it's a massive plot hole. So, if he's dead, right, when Jack knocks him out, or kills him, yeah, by kicking him in the head or whatever he did, and then he wakes up at the dinner table pretty much alive, and that's when they feed him the rotten meat or the infected meat, then how is Ethan still conscious and alive when Zoe's stapling his hand back onto his wrist, and then he's at the dinner table just waking up? Doesn't make sense. So he must have been infected when he died, when Jack killed his ass. But again, that's a plot hole, because she says, yeah, you died, but you came back because you were infected. So Ethan is essentially a moulded zombie. That's what he is. He's a mould creature, but he looks human, a little bit like Buenavito and stuff like that, and like Mia. Also, another thing is, like, Mia's still infected because he injects her with the serum, the antivirus, but she's still controlled by Evelyn, so there's still a link there. So I'm pretty sure that, and they experiment on her in this game, so it's alluded to the fact that she's still infected. Ethan's definitely infected. He's a mold monster, and he hasn't got long to live. He's gonna basically calcify like they all do, and die essentially. So he's got nothing left to live for other than saving his daughter. So Evelyn is still an annoying little brat. He wakes up minus a heart, I think, because Miranda's literally like drinking the blood and stuff like that, which she ripped out of his chest. And you are rescued by the merchant. And the merchant's never explained, there's no backstory on him, he's never explained what he is, who he is, but Ethan does say, what are you? Like, who are you, or what are you? And he just says, just a concerned citizen, or something like that, or, I always treat my patrons with respect. So he says, where do you want to go? And he says, do me one last favour, drop me off at the ceremony site. So you get dropped off to the ceremony site, you go through this moulded forest, all these mould trees and stuff, and they're spitting out those boring zombie creatures. You avoid those because you haven't got enough ammo to fucking take them out and take on Miranda. And that's when you see her. She's completed the ceremony. Rose has been reformed, rebirthed. And as you're tussling to get the baby off her, Chris, I think it's Chris anyway, shoots Miranda. And you don't even get to really see him. I don't even know if it was him or one of his squad, but yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. This is going to play a big part in the actual twist at the end. The BSAA show up in helicopters, and Chris and his buddy, they spot them from a sniper rifle from the scope, and you can see soldiers rappelling from the helicopter. So the BSAA are actually fighting the mold as well, and they're involved. But there's more on that when we talk about the twist at the end. So the twists are silly in this game, but that was one twist I liked. So, because it brought it back to the more sci-fi, bioweapons type of storyline that the older games have focused on, not this fantasy type stuff that's more in line with like Bloodborne or or Dark Souls or something else, or Morrowind or something. It's leaning more towards that fantasy. So Miranda, you fight Miranda. She mutates into she can shapeshift. She can turn into a spider. She turns into a spider. Then she starts flying. She's got these huge crow wings, and so she can fly about the place. She has these gas bubble things that turn into fireballs that launch themselves at you. It reminded me a little bit of the boss fight from Onimusha Dawn of Dreams, when you fight Fortinbras. Spoilers for that game. At the end, he's floating around. He's firing fireballs at you and all kinds of shit. It's more fantasy. It's in the realm of fantasy. But you can shoot these gas bubble things, and it can blow her up, and then she'll like mutate into the spider form, and she can erect these mold trees and stuff like that, and you can hide behind there and snipe her, and it's just you just shoot her over and over again, and it's such a over the top boss. Like, it's more in line with something out of Final Fantasy than it is. It actually reminds me of the Final Fantasy VIII boss, the witch in that. It's more in line with something like that. And her powers are, and you eventually, wear her down, and then she starts creating like a hallucination type thing where it's all dark and the lights are out, and another thing I got to say, actually, one bad point is the lighting in this game fucking sucked. I wish you could turn your flashlight on and off when you wanted to, not just when it let you, or your night vision goggles, but no, instead, it's just super dark, and it will only allow you when it's really dark to use your flashlight, but Seven Sword did that anyway. So, you wear her down, she creates this hallucination, pitch black type thing, where she comes at you a little bit like Zone Ninjas 2 with one of those bosses where he's in the dark and he just appears, and you've got to hit him at the right time. It borrows so many ideas from different things, it's not unique in its own way. And you eventually wear her down, you kill her, she dies, calcifies, end of Miranda, right? You take your baby, but at this point Ethan's calcifying, meets up with Chris. Ethan knows that's it, it's over, so he pushes Chris away with the baby, gives the baby to Chris, and he says, "Goodbye, Rose," and it's sad in the way he says it. He's like, "Goodbye, Rose," like, you can tell, you can hear it in his voice. The actor did a great job that he wishes he could spend more time with his baby, and see his daughter grow up, and I thought that was bloody well handled. It was bloody well handled. Pity the game doesn't earn that moment. It's a pity the game doesn't earn that moment and that ending. And I've got to be honest, we've gone from tactical soldiers, a squad of soldiers, walking into a mansion, facing off against zombies and stuff, and uncovering a insidious plot with a pharmaceutical company that makes bioweapons behind the scenes, to melodramatic fantasy adventure with a guy trying to rescue his daughter and his wife. Yeah, so that's what we've gone to, and that's why it's such a jarring experience. But he pushes Chris away. Chris has Rose. He takes the detonator that's planted on the Megamycete, and as the Megamycete's growing, expanding, become this huge fucking thing, that could just, unleash like thousands upon thousands of mold monsters and lichens and stuff. Because that's where the lichens come from. They basically splice DNA of a wolf with a human. There you go. There's your answer. That's why we get the lichens. So they spliced human and wolf DNA with the mold, and they got the lichen creatures. There you go. I knew that's what they would do in some way or another. So yeah, it could basically just have an army, thousands and thousands of lichens probably, and mold monsters and all kinds of stuff. And Ethan puts his hand on the detonator, it's trembling, and he's sort of like, the way he's breathing is trembling, and it's very well handled. He presses the detonator, goes off. The helicopter's already in the air. Very old school Resident Evil ending where things blow up and the helicopter escapes. And there's some melodrama between Mia and Chris. She's wanting to know where her husband is. He really hits the side of the helicopter, and he gets a little teary and upset. He didn't even get teary when Pierce died in Resident Evil 6, and they were closer. They were comrades, but kind of does, but he doesn't. It was handled differently here, and it was just like, all right, whatever. So then Mia's like upset, just holding the baby, and it's very somber. It's a very sad ending because the good guy doesn't win in the end of this. Like, normally in Resident Evil, the good guys win, but in this, no, they don't. Like, Ethan dies. They do and they don't. Like, Ethan sacrifices himself, so that's quite sad. But Ethan was always going to be a sacrificial character. He was a throwaway character, a bit like Raiden was in Metal Gear 2. They used him, done what they did with him. had some plot revolve around him, and then they could kill him off. Because if they kill off any of these other characters that are so tied to the series, like Chris, if they were to kill Chris off, dude, I knew they weren't going to do that because people would be pissed. You know, they'd be like, why couldn't he have a good ending and stuff like that? So they wouldn't dare do that. So they used Ethan as the sacrificial character, you know, the throwaway plot device character. And so it's very somber, it's very sad. But the twist is that one of Chris's soldiers says, you know, Captain, you need to look at this. He goes over to like a BSAA soldier that they've captured, and I'm pretty sure they reused an asset from the mini tyrants, you know, in the factory. But he looks down and you see this like basically tyrant-looking, zombie-looking kind of super soldier, and it has the BSAA logo on it. So it's obviously a BSA soldier, and it basically says, or it's pointing to the fact that the BSAA are now using bioweapons to fight bioweapons and bioterrorism. So that's kind of sucky. Like they've gone the way of every other company. So that's the twist. That's the plot twist. And Chris says, plot calls for North America. I want to find out what the BSAA are playing at, and someone's got to pay. Like someone's going to answer for this. Yeah, for Ethan's death and the rest of it. So that's what they do, and I don't know if that's going to be explained in DLC or if that's Resident Evil 9. That's where it's gonna head to. Maybe you get to the BSAA headquarters, which would be pretty cool because I think we only saw them in Revelations 1, and maybe it's destroyed and, you know, completely fucked, and we get to explore it and go in there sort of post viral outbreak or mold outbreak or something like that, and we get to fight some of the super soldiers that they're using, and I'm guessing we will, and they've got guns and all kinds of stuff, and it's going to be Resident Evil 5 territory where all the zombies had like guns, you know, or not zombies, but they were the Plagas, the Plaga type 2s, so yeah, the Manginis, so you know, maybe that's what we're going to get here, but it will be a lot easier and a lot better as an experience because this is a first-person shooter game now, anyway. So what happens is, it would have to go back in time at this point in order to have a story for number 9, unless it does just move forward, or we get DLC explaining what happened within the BSAA, you know, headquarters and what they're playing at. Because it jumps, I think, to 2030, so it jumps a few years ahead, a lot of years ahead, and Rose is now grown up. I'm guessing Chris is an old man, all the characters in the universe are old now, and she gets off this bus outside the cemetery. She walks into the cemetery. There's a gravestone with, you know, for Ethan with her father's name on it. Loving husband and father who gave his life, all that stuff. She puts some flowers, some lilies down, and then a government agent, you know, stops in an SUV, gets out, and it's alluded that Rose is in training at the moment. She's, you know, doing all these tests and stuff to become an agent, I'm guessing, and she walks up to the guy, the government agent, who I think might be one of Chris's Wolfhound pack or something like that. I thought it would have been way cooler and a great cameo if Leon, you know, was the government agent or something like that. It would have been really cool. He's got experience handling like bioweapons and looking after people with Ashley, so, you know, basically both those things he's more than capable of doing. But I think it's one of the Wolfhound pack, and he's slightly older. She gets in the car, in the SUV. No, sorry, before that, he makes a joke saying that, you know, calls her Evelyn. And she grabs him by the suit, by the shirt. She doesn't actually do some Wesker-style moves, which I don't understand where the leaks were coming from with that, because she doesn't do that. And she just says to him, while she grabs him, you know, she's quite strong, she says, you know, if you don't cut that out, I'll show you moves that even Chris doesn't know about. And he's like, all right, Rose, I was just joking. And they get in the SUV, and the government agent says something along the lines of, you know, you're like him, you know, you remind me of him. And she says, yeah, I know. And they kind of have that moment where, you know, normally they're cool with each other. They might joke around and grab each other up and stuff, but they're cool. And as the SUV heads down the road and it's about to end, I watched a video and I was like, wow, that surprised me, because you don't notice it if you're just watched it like from your TV. It's very easily missed, but the SUV does stop and it lingers, and you're thinking, oh, it's so far down the road, it's still lingering. You're kind of wondering, like, is it going to hit to the credits? You know, is it going to cut to the credits? But someone zoomed in, and the SUV stops, and there's a guy walking. You can faintly see someone walking, yeah, when you watch it. And what happens was when the guy zoomed in, you could see that the dude looks like he's walking towards the SUV, and the SUV stopped, and then it ends. And the end tagline is the father's story or something like that comes to a close. That's what it says. So, you know, they kind of revealed and ruined the fact that Ethan would die. I knew it wouldn't be Chris, but they tried to play on people's emotions with it might be Chris or it might be Ethan, but we all knew it was going to be Ethan who dies, and it pretty much outright says that. It says the story comes to an end, like his story will come to an end or something. So I always knew that he might die. I had that feeling, a lot of people did. So that's how the game ends. Overall, the story is so over complicated, convoluted, and over the top. It's a huge mess. It leads way more towards fantasy than it does sci-fi, and the series started off as a sci-fi type series, horror sci-fi series, and it tries to branch the story out in ways that I don't like by kind of insinuating there's more than just these companies and stuff creating bioweapons. Maybe this is like an old, eons old virus, and there's more viruses like this that can create gods, and I think that's too leaning towards the fantasy realm, you know, and things like Prometheus with aliens that were, you know, that seeded planets that were higher than human beings and created us as, you know, as a species, and all this other crap. It borrows too much from Prometheus and all this, you know, Spencer's ramblings of the right to become a god type shit. So that's what it insinuates, and I just didn't like with how they moved the story forward and how they tried to connect it all up, and, you know, introducing Spencer and the Umbrella Corporation into the story was literally thrown in there, definitely 100%. And I think it was Revelations 3 because they do this whole Ava being put into Rose's body because Rose is a vessel, and this whole transferring consciousnesses and souls into like another human being, the body of something, just like they did in Revelations 2, and I did not like the story in Revelations 2, so this was definitely Revelations 3, 100%. So yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't hit the mark. I would say the story is about a 4, maybe a 5 out of 10 in terms of story. The whole game itself is a 7 out of 10. So those were the story spoilers. Overall, I was very, very disappointed with this game. Very disappointed. There are some things to like about it, and maybe it's one of those games. One thing I will say that it has going for it is, even though it's quite linear in structure and it's a bit of a mess and it's uneven and disjointed, just in terms of gameplay, the game itself, boss battles, sub-bosses, story, all of that stuff, it's all just disjointed and just all over the place. And a lot of reviews, even the ones that have shielded it, have said, you know, this is a uneven slice of horror, but still a good one. It was very disappointing. Maybe over time, when I play more and more of it, I can appreciate it more, like I did with 4. But I doubt that's going to happen because I don't think this is as good as 4, and I'm not going to see it being as good as 4. That's just it. It doesn't hit the same heights or live up to 4's reputation. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on everything. Unfortunately, it was underwhelming, and it's a shame because it's kind of how the past couple of months have been. We've had Mortal Kombat come out, it's been underwhelming. Resident Evil 3 Remake before that, underwhelming. Before that, even more before that, Phantom Pain, Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain, which was, again, trailers made it look amazing, but it was underwhelming. And now we have Resident Evil 8 or Village Resident Evil. It's very underwhelming and a little too contrived in the plot department, and a little too underwhelming in the gameplay department. So hopefully multiple playthroughs, I'll find a love for it just for what it tries to be, in, you know, for it in its own right. But it's not Resident Evil at this point. I'm not excited for the next one. I've got to be real with you guys. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not excited for the next one. I'm really not. I was excited for this because 7 was decent. I like 7. But yeah, I think it's a Resident Evil 6 type of situation, even though it's not as bad as that game. It's really put me off the series going forward because I'm afraid that with whatever they come out with next, even if they are ending it with 9, it's just going to go off the deep end again and go overboard, and it's going to fuck the rest of the lore. And that's why I don't really want to know. I'd rather just, if it's rubbish, just leave it where it is. So, honest, if you are an old school Resident Evil fan, or you just like those aspects of Resident Evil, that's why you got into the series, you're even a fan of 4, just, you know what I mean, a diehard in that way, it's going to depend on if you can just turn your brain off and and accept it for what it is. But for me, someone who's been there from the very beginning, since Director's Cut, nah, I'm sorry, I just couldn't. I couldn't turn my brain off and let them shit all over the lore and the story like that. It really annoyed me. And like I said, underneath the story and the plot is just an underwhelming, you know, action shooter, first person action game, essentially. So that's how I feel about things. Sorry if you don't like my thoughts and opinions on it, but that's how I feel. It's not the best Resident Evil game to date. That's bullshit. I've got to call people out on that. And it's not even as good as 7. So there you go. They're my thoughts. That's the plot out of the way. All spoiled. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Even if you don't agree with me, or you don't agree with my points, you don't like the review score, I hope you enjoyed the video for whatever it was. Yeah, don't forget, if you did, smash that like button. I'm sure I'll get an even amount of dislikes and likes. Yeah, if you like me as a content creator, then subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot for all the subscribers I've gained recently. Much appreciated, and over the course of covering Village, Resident Evil. And until next time, all that's left to be said is, I'm System Check 66. Have a good rest of your week, and I'm out of here. Peace.